Mithali, we'll come back to you definitely, and as more results would also trickle in from some nondescript village in United States, we'll be bringing you up to speed with that. But before that, let me welcome Pradeep Kumar, former diplomat and visiting fellow scholar, George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Mr. Kapur, thank you so much for joining us here on One India. Before we get into the diplomatic arena and the circles of the relations between India and Washington, D.C., how, in your opinion, the Washington, it's almost 10 minutes past 6 o'clock there in Washington, how do you think those living in the capital city, it's a busy affair since early morning, or is it a lukewarm response from their side?
Well, currently, Pankaj, I am in India on a visit, just landed yesterday. But in Washington, D.C., there was a lot of mail-in voting,
Okay.
and in tens of millions, about 77, 78 million have already voted. But the
Yes.
enthusiasm for voting in this election is very
Okay.
high on
Okay.
both the sides. So the colleges like where my wife teaches in Washington D.C. area, the professors and the students and the faculty and the staff, they have been given half a day off to go and vote. So even if they have put in their votes by postal ballot, they still get half a day to enjoy it. In the other university, University of Maryland, where I used to teach earlier,
Still,
they have watch parties, for example,
yes.
when the counting starts. So till the late night, till the
Uh-huh.
preliminary indications come out about the election
Wow.
trends, there will be continuous watch parties. So there is a lot of enthusiasm for both the candidates. But if we were to take it on a comparative scale, then I would say that currently the voter enthusiasm is probably a little more for the Democrats, for Kamala Harris, not necessarily amongst the Indian origin people, the Indian diaspora, which is evenly balanced between the two candidates. But amongst a lot of the other segments of the population, there is slightly higher, enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. Also, the number of volunteers who are registering for canvassing for Kamala Harris is more than for Donald Trump in this election. The fundraising which is happening is also significantly higher for Democrats and for Kamala Harris. Though people like Elon Musk are supporting Donald Trump, but there are people like George Soros
Yes.
and other woke elements
Donald
and the
Trump.
deep state and the military industrial complex and the
Bill Gates.
liberals, they are all supporting Kamala Harris. So she has got a lot of the backing, including of the Islamists. For
Right.
example, Tim Walz, the vice president candidate, he has signed a document with the Muslims that Muslims will get an equal share in the governance of US after the elections. Now, those are documents which are not coming out very much in the mainstream media or in the narrative or in the discussions, but they are going to pose a very significant challenge in case Kamala Harris wins. My current reading on the ground when I was there till yesterday in Washington D.C. is that very likely that Kamala Harris is going to win by a big margin, and the opinion polls may be proved wrong as they were proved wrong in India. They kept on saying all the Western mainstream media kept on projecting about the Indian elections that Modi is going to win big, Modi is going to get more than 350 seats, and they sort of try to create a sense of complacency and saying that you are winning anyway. There's nothing going to happen to that. And that sort of thing they have done to Donald Trump and the Republicans here. The Democrat machinery is very well oiled, very streamlined, very efficient, and they are miles ahead of the game than the Republicans in this way. They are also able to put out their narrative and their stories and their facts or non-facts and their truths and lies in a very effective manner to the people. The Republicans are not able to cope with all that. So they are, a decade ahead of the Republicans in that game also. So to that extent, they have a good chance of winning currently, and I think that she will win, with a big margin. But then for her, with all those IOUs which they are signing left and right and center, how far they'll be able to govern effectively, how far they will be able to look after the US interest, how far they will be able to cope with the breaking US forces, how far they will be able to cope with the, taking India US relations forward without interference. Because, for example, just as a simple example, I'll tell you, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, was a very good candidate for vice president, and he was far ahead of Tim Walz, and the support he had
Uh-huh.
from within the Democratic Party was very, very high. But then the woke element, the Islamists and the others, they got into the act because he's a Jewish person, that he will not be good for America because of Israel Palestine, Israel Gaza issues. And they mounted a massive campaign. So the whole decision to select a vice president candidate got delayed for many days. And Kamala Harris did not have the courage or the capacity to go against that sort of, sort of inputs or massive assault onto her choice. Joe Biden still had some capacity to do that. How much capacity she has? I mean, sometimes you grow in the chair, you sort of assume that position, and you become bigger in persona, in character, in capacity. But Joe Biden had that, because I was told by White House, a friend of mine, that when Prime Minister Modi was visiting US, there was again a massive campaign being launched by all these forces which I've listed: George Soros, the Wokes, the Islamists, the Khalistanis, the leftists, the liberals, the progressive Democrats,
Right.
and people like Rahul Gandhi from India, who signed on the same letter, same draft, same template against Modi's visit. What Joe Biden did was he kept on listening to them for a long time. Then he got very upset with all the disruptions, and he told his staff that I'm not interested to get distracted by all these things. I want to focus on the visit in a very positive way. So he focused on the visit, and it became a very big visit for India and a very big visit for US. I was there at the White House. We saw the way Joe Biden treated Prime Minister Modi and the way the whole Indian diaspora was treated. Now, what will happen next if she has, if she owes so much to so many disparate elements, entities, groups, agencies, etc. So, in the State Department, for example, there are a lot of people who have ideas which are absolutely against India-US interests. They will give a lot of money in tens of millions or even more for human rights studies in India, human rights efforts in India, religious freedom studies in India, religious freedom conferences in India. So while there are a lot of sectors of the US, thought leadership, which are very clear, like the many of the academia, many of the think tanks, National Security Agency, Department of Defense, the military people who have very great interest in forging the relations with
Right.
India, in expanding that footprint. But there are people in agencies like the State Department who are very antithetical to that. So those elements under Donald Trump cannot really thrive. Whereas with Kamala Harris, they may have a field day, and that may not be very good for US, for India, for US-India relationships, and for the world. Back to you, Pankaj.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Kapoor, the analysis, Yogesh, that Mr. Kapoor has put up is very relevant, especially what is happening just in the proximity of United States, in Canada. और ये जो फ्रिंज एलिमेंट्स की अगर हम बात करें, ये जो हम बात करें the separatist elements, those who are also finding a voice in countries like this, at times during state visits of Prime Minister Modi, these things do come up. And we have seen in the past as well how invariably India has been given an upper hand as far as any ruling dispensation is concerned in United States.
Don't miss out. Log on to oneindia.com for more updates.